Now, in the shadow of imminent defeat, European powers have unveiled their most audacious military initiative, perhaps, since the end of the Second World War. So as Russia tightens its grip on Ukraine's throat, Britain and France are preparing to cross a line that potentially could reshape the continent's security landscape forever. And our next story tells you about the Ukrainian peacekeeping plan that the sitting British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will present to the American President Donald Trump. Take a look.
Fortunes have rapidly changed for Ukraine. It is getting badgered not just on the battlefield, but is at risk of being diplomatically isolated as well. Senior Russian and US officials are setting the stage for a summit meeting. Putin appears closer than ever to cementing Moscow's gains of about a fifth of Ukraine's territory and keeping it out of NATO. Stunned by Trump's moves, Europe is working on an ambitious plan. Britain and France are spearheading an initiative to deploy up to 30,000 European troops as peacekeepers in a post-ceasefire Ukraine. The plan that hinges crucially on American support emerges as Ukraine faces mounting pressure both on the battlefield and diplomatic fronts. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer plans to present Trump with a detailed proposal during his Washington visit next week. The strategy crucially depends on American air support, with US fighter jets and missiles positioned throughout Eastern Europe, ready to respond to any Russian violations of the armistice. The proposed European force aims to protect key Ukrainian cities, while the Ukrainian troops would be deployed along the current front lines as seen in this map. But for any European troops to be deployed, America must back the security guarantee.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement. But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
The Kremlin has made it clear that any plan to send European troops to Ukraine as part of a potential peacekeeping mission would be unacceptable to Russia. It's not just Moscow, there is opposition to the plan within Europe too. Germany has clearly said that it is against deployment of any European boots on Ukraine soil. There's a massive pushback from other European countries also.
It is simply too early to talk about a specific number of troops because the situation may change as the framework changes. If it is not NATO, or is it NATO, or is it a coalition of goodwill, or is it some other format?
Poland will support Ukraine, as it has up to now, organizationally, financially, in accordance with our means, with humanitarian efforts and military aid. We are not planning to send Polish troops to Ukrainian territory.
Despite the internal divisions in Europe, Britain and France argue this deployment threads the needle between supporting Ukraine and avoiding direct NATO-Russian confrontation. But most importantly, the plan's future hangs only on Trump's approval. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective on this, we are joined by Ms. Jane Kininmont, who's the Acting Director of the European Leadership Network. She's joining us live from London. Ms. Kininmont, let me start off by asking you about this, potential plan for the post-war scenario once, some kind of a ceasefire is agreed upon, where the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has suggested that he, along with France, could station as many as about 30,000 troops in a buffer zone once a ceasefire comes into existence. Do you think the British Prime Minister is serious then?
I think it's very serious, although there are many things still to be worked out, not least whether there actually will be enough of an agreement on some kind of ceasefire to be a basis for this. But the problem that they're trying to solve is obviously there's absolutely no trust between Russia and Ukraine, and absolutely no trust between Ukraine and NATO. So the issue that Ukraine is facing now is not just does it give up territory to Russia, but does it believe that that would actually stop the conflict? Most Ukrainians that you talk to will say, we think if there's a ceasefire, it would only be a temporary pause, and then Russia would come back for more and try to take more of our territory. So that's the idea behind trying to have some forces inside Ukrainian territory to stop there being a breakdown of the ceasefire maybe a year down the line.
Interesting, because just last year there were estimates that were put out by the British Army which said that the total strength of the British Army is less than 70,000, and every member of the British Army could be comfortably seated inside of a football stadium. So a lot of people would wonder, can Britain at this moment commit, along with France, 30,000 troops to a buffer zone? But I also want to ask you about, the differences between the United States of America and also the NATO allies within Europe, where the United States and Europe do not seem to be on the same page. Europe is going ahead and is imposing more sanctions, but Russia and the United States, it appears, are moving closer to each other and could potentially do a deal without the Europeans or the Ukrainians on board.
You're absolutely right that the US and Russia are moving closer together, and these things are playing out extremely quickly. Everybody knew that there would be some kind of US-Russia outreach, but I think the speed of it has left everybody feeling disoriented in Europe. So, people are kind of struggling to keep up with the speed of events. I think the issue is, though, that if the US wants an agreement that is paid for and policed by European forces, European countries will need to have some kind of say in what that looks like. Otherwise, they simply won't make those contributions. But that is going to take a lot of different formats and different negotiations to figure out, starting with talks within Europe itself over how much support there is for this British-French plan.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Kinnan-Mott, for joining us with our perspective there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.